Oh, hi there. This is Robin Hadfield coming to you today to share another story from the Bible, the Word of God, about a woman who doesn't have one or two verses dedicated to her. No, she has a whole book, the book of Ruth, named after her. We find it in the Old Testament. Well, who is Ruth and why is she in the Bible? How did she get into the story of redemption? Well, it's quite an amazing story because Ruth is born what I would call the wrong nation. She's born in Moab. She's a Moabite, perpetual enemies of Israel, considered Gentile, pagan, definitely outside the covenant of God enjoyed by those in Israel. And so she's a Moabite. Well, how did she get into the story? Well, she got into the story through her husband. There was a Jewish family living in Bethlehem, and there's a famine, and so they decide to go to Moab, where things look not so bad. So they moved there, and it was a total disaster. It's Naomi and her husband, and he dies. The two sons marry a Moabite woman, Ruth and Oprah, and then the two sons die. And so Naomi has come to a foreign country, and she has the loss of her husband and her two sons. And so now she has two daughter-in-laws who are Moabites. What is she going to do? And how is she going to provide for them and herself? Well, she decides to go back to Israel. Now, what about the two daughter-in-laws? Well, they have to decide whether to stay or go. Oprah decides to stay. Ruth decides to go with Naomi without any prospects whatsoever of any hope of being married again and having a family. But her loyalty to Naomi is deep and rich. And so then she says some very famous words in the Word of God. She says to Naomi, "Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Where you die, I will die and be buried. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." Now, in those words, there is such a statement of faith that has been embedded in Ruth. Where did she get that? How did that become so prominent in her life? Well, she's been observing Naomi, and what she's seen, she desires. She desires to be like her mother-in-law. She desires to follow the living God of Israel. And so when Naomi is going to return, Ruth says without any shadow of doubt, "Don't argue with me, I'm coming with you." But there's no sense of any future, as I said, of marriage or children. Her only point of contact in a foreign land, in a foreign language, and foreign culture is she's a pagan widow woman from Moab. And so that would put her in a very low and vulnerable position. But she's going to go because there is something in the life of Naomi that witnesses to her heart that she wants to be like her mother-in-law. And so she goes. It's about a 50-mile journey over somewhat rugged countryside to get it back to Bethlehem. But the story of this first part is this: what is God teaching us through the dedication of Ruth to go back to Israel with her mother-in-law? Well, sometimes our decisions are not for necessarily our benefit, but for the benefit of others. It's out of a love for someone else who's been near and dear to us that we can sacrifice something of ourselves to go and be there for them. But what Ruth doesn't know, and what we know by reading the Word of God, things are going to turn out far better for her than she could ever imagine. But that's for next week. Well, the Lord bless you wherever you are in a journey, and your journey mainly is to help and benefit another person. Then I encourage you to take that journey, and the Lord bless you.